All right, good evening. So this month's Purple group, where we read different books, watch different movies on climate, ecology, and creation. This month we read On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal by Naomi Klein. It's not a collection of essays, but it's kind of different articles she's written and that she kind of combined together over the course of it's probably 4 years, from like 2015, 2016 to 2019, I believe. Specifically on basically the Green New Deal, kind of what it is and why we should look into it. Chuck and Marcia, did you read the book?
Yes.
A couple months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it wasn't as I mean, there was a bit of jabbing at the other side, at capitalism, obviously, but I didn't think it was as much as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was written a little better and less kind of doom and gloom. I don't know. What did you guys think?
I thought it was good. A lot of good information, factual information. She did a lot of research over the years and proves her points pretty well, but and makes a case for her new Green Deal. But the problem is we got people to make those decisions, and nobody is willing to give up their current standard of living that is creating the problem, like ourselves. And nobody in the USA is going to agree to go back to live like the Indians used to.
Yeah.
Just not going to do it. And probably the biggest hazard prevention, I hate to say this, but is the thousands of religious organizations that absolutely cannot agree on anything. When it comes to religion, they just won't agree. We can't agree right here in our own religious small groups. We have divisions right in our own little church. Other churches are right here in the community. So in other words, I think it's a factual thing. Climate change is coming. It's going to be some fantastic changes in our society, in our government, and in our economy over the next 15, 20 years, 30 years, maybe 50 years. Who knows? It's coming pretty fast, but yet it's so gradual that those folks like me really just can't do much about it.
Yeah.
I hate to be a pessimist, but let's face it, Marcia and I have traveled around the world and the cultures just will not cooperate.
Yeah, it's interesting that faith does that, right? It has the potential to unify and divide, and somehow we decided to make it a division. And it's interesting because she doesn't talk too much about the religious right or the yeah, she talks more on politics than she does religion. Actually, I think sometimes when she mentions religion, she says, faith leaders, I think. But she says those are the people that actually have the most influence. So she almost paints it in as religion as more of the tool that can get us out of this mess, which I thought was interesting.
She did meet with the Pope and his group, and she didn't have a lot of good stuff, I didn't think, to say about the Pope and his the new Pope has really tried to be more of an environmentalist, if you say it, but he's got a kickback from his bishops and
Yeah, I haven't followed too much with it, but it feels like he has certain ideas and beliefs as a person and as a man of God. And then he kind of gets pushed back and then kind of pulls back from that when he has to, be the Pope, right? Instead of just a spiritual leader, right? He has to follow these kind of man-made rules from bishops and making sure that, the political and the politics, right? The hierarchy of the Catholic Church maintains intact. So I feel like he's been stepping back from what he initially kind of believed in. But that's just my own, kind of 10,000 foot view. One of the parts in the book that I highlighted on page, 93, it's when he's talking about, climate, or when she's talking about climate deniers. And she made an interesting point that it's like that she doesn't think that climate deniers, it's not that they don't believe climate is changing, it's just that they don't want to face the implications of that. It says, as Kahan explained in Nature, people find it disconcerting to believe that behavior that they find noble is nevertheless detrimental to society, and behavior they find base is beneficial to it. Because accepting such a claim could drive a wedge between them and their peers, they have a strong emotional predisposition to reject it. In other words, it is always easier to deny reality than to watch your worldview get shattered. In fact, that was true as diehard Stalinists at the height of the purges, as it is of libertarian climate deniers today. Yeah, I had never thought of that. I always thought that, they just didn't believe it, or, didn't want to, when you really think that it's, and in the first kind of half of the book, she talks about those type of people who are kind of opposing it. It's that they really don't want to have to face the implications of what that means, like the things that they have to let go in order for it to, if climate change is real and if we have to do something about it, they know the implications mean that they have to change their worldview, not just their beliefs, are kind of idolatry of capitalism, and lose those, as companies and stuff, lose those profits that they've been making. It's almost similar to, I think, I don't know, this may be too strong of words, but anti-slavery versus slavery. It's maybe not that people didn't think slavery was wrong, but they didn't want to lose the profits and the benefits that they were getting from it. I feel like in this book, it feels like maybe we hold the world as a slave.
Well, we've been reading Four Winds, which is about the Dust Bowl time. And of course, it leads up to Roosevelt's New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
That all worked. But again, the corporations were the ones that benefited mostly from a lot of those programs, although he did put a lot of people to work. But, when you have trickle down from the top economics, it usually does not work. usually the man on the bottom is still on the bottom.
Mhm.
But one thing about the good, that kind of service is a lot more people on the bottom eventually. So you're not there by yourself. And you just look at the unemployment rate in different countries and increase it, and you can encourage it. Oh, and a system, whether it's a democracy or capitalistic or the Chinese system, China has put more people to work in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years than the United States has working, and yet most of them are very, very poor still.
Yeah, the connection, I mean, like if you call it the Green New Deal, but you know, there are a lot, I thought there's a lot more direct similarities to it than I thought. I thought, you know, Green New Deal, I thought it was more of a marketing thing than literally as very similar to what Roosevelt did, and the very multifaceted approach to it. You know, it's dealing with climate, it's dealing with socioeconomics, it's dealing with, you know, racism, and trying to handle all that at once is an interesting thing. And then she makes the point of, you know, towards the end of the book, she talks about all the things that, or the critiques that people have of it, and it's, you know, they're trying to, it says that, well, it's biting off more than we can chew, and it's trying to tackle too many things at once. And she says, well, we have to, like, if we don't do it like this, it won't happen at all. Which I find fascinating. Right, and well, and it's the same, you know, I think it's a similar thing with the Dust Bowl. I mean, and you know, in the 30s, right, we had a economic recession, so we had to do something politically and something economically to get us out of that. But again, you know, the ecology, right, the dust, and you know, how do we, you know, change how we farm and plant hedgerows and all that. So it was, yeah, I don't know, I came back out of it thinking, actually feeling a little bit more inspired about it than the, you know, kind of hopelessness of here's where we are, you know, just the whole guilt trip of if we don't do something, we're gonna die mentality.
Well, it's so interesting in comparing, you know, the pandemic with the Dust Bowl. So many things are the same, like the immigrants. Like, of course, California would not let the immigrants in. They sent them all home, but then they didn't have anybody to pick cotton. So then when the people came from Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and moved to California because it was the land of milk and honey, they didn't want all those immigrants out there. And here they had come, and they lived in squatter tents, and I mean, you know, pretty harsh conditions, and pretty much similar to the kind of things the people, you know, we increased the minimum wage, but yet now with what's going on, they still can't live on the increase in the minimum wage and have a decent living.
Right.
So it's really interesting to look at it. I certainly don't have the answer to it.
And climate change is going to exacerbate and increase the rapidity of the world order. It's going to be changed. Whether it's democracy, there's fewer, some of the democratic countries are leaning more towards autocratic stuff, including the United States is voting the last few years has been toward more control from Washington or leadership, whether, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, whichever one group's in charge, they want to do it their way, and the rest of us got to follow. And that's an autocratic or dictator type of direction. And that's the only way a Green New Deal could eventually work, is you had one powerful organization that through fear and redistribution of limited resources to get the poor people to vote for them. And what you do is the ones that are on the bottom rung, you distribute something to them to get them to agree. But in order to climate change is different, because we all want clothes and we want food and we want TVs and electricity and lights. There's a limited amount of all of that stuff, and the 7.5 billion people in the world, in the earth, just aren't going to equally share it. And there's no way that they're going to be able to. There's just not that much to share, and those of us that have some, we're not very generous when it comes to giving it to the really poor people. We start some drone wars, we'll have a war. And that's how we got out of the Depression. When I was born in 1932, height of the Depression. And what started it was Hitler in 1929, started invading other countries and starting a war machine, and everybody stood back and let it go because it's not affecting them. And eventually, we had to start building boats and ships and guns and bombs. And that made us a rich nation. And right now, Russia's doing the same thing. And we're helping Ukraine, and China's helping Russia. So but you get back to the climate change, people are causing some of it, although I think it's a natural environmental thing that the world is going to deteriorate. I mean, let's just look at the Webb telescope they just put up. They see pictures of planets and stuff that don't exist anymore. Really, we get the light from them, but they're really gone. And this planet will be gone someday.
Yeah.
Science knows it, but it won't be gone in my time. And my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren not born yet. So it's a serious problem. I just really don't think humans have the willpower collectively. I'm kind of down on it, to be honest with you. It's kind of discouraging. The book was encouraging and discouraging, because the facts are the facts. Whether their deniers want to deny that there's climate change, they got to be blind. They've got to become stupid. The same thing, but, well.
But, the corporation and so forth, and the pandemic has really pointed that out to me, because I'm a POA for a lady that's in a memory care thing. And really, during the pandemic, run by a corporation, really controlled her movements, everything, my movements, what I could do, what I couldn't do, what she could do, and what she couldn't do. And so I think on a local level, but I was just thinking, like the other day, I finally got someone to be able to sit down with and go just over her medication list. And they used their pharmacy, they used their nurses, doctors that belong to, and if you don't say anything, they automatically use those people. And so when I checked her, she got a bill for like $200 on drugs, and she doesn't have a drug plan because she never did go into it, and she's 97 years old. And to go into it, she has this high subsidy that she has to pay even to enter a drug plan, but she doesn't use drugs. But the drugs they was given her an antifungal powder. Well, and they were charging $66 for the same tube. I checked it with Sigler's. They were charging about $38, I think. And then I called the nurse and I said, does she really need to be using that, or can she use an antifungal powder? Oh yeah, and she can get that over the counter.
Yeah,
And so here I've been paying these high drug bills for her, and she really doesn't even need it. And they don't even see, they set you up. They don't tell you a lot. But, you know, if you ask enough questions, but I think, so when they go in, I think they should have to give everybody the list of the medications they're going to give them, because when you go into a facility, they have this set list of things they're going to put you on. And so at that point, you know, you have no choice other than she went into hospice, so they took her off all of her medications. And we never put her, even though she come out of hospice, we never put her back on any of those medications. But then they were charging us for all this over-the-counter stuff. So, I mean, it's in small ways. Now, that's the kind of place where I think I can help. You know, I can fight for her. I can let other people know in the facility that, no, you don't have to use their pharmacy. You don't have to use their doctor. You can make those choices, but they'll never tell you that. And so that's where I am. I try to do what I can do in my own, but I don't know how to fight the corporations with climate control.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, we have to make laws. Like, I mean, as much as I enjoy reading Ayn Rand and being independent, you know, if we're not, the companies are just gonna do what they want. And so I think we do need these necessary laws to dictate how a company can and can't be run, because there's too many people that use it to take advantage and glean from other people, that, you know, we need someone larger than the corporations.
Well, standard of living and quality of living is different from a lot of folks. From the very poor we saw in Uganda, different places and in the world, in Africa and places, it's just absolutely tragic that I will use more stuff 1 week, and some of those people use their whole family for a year. Fresh water. I mean, we just use fresh water here like it's going up, you know, we got it forever. But now some places they're finding out back east that, well, Colorado River's not enough water for those folks anymore.
West.
And back at west, yeah, California and Nevada and in the valley where they grow all the fruits and vegetables and stuff. So that's going to change the supply and demand, and the people that have will have the money to buy it, but those who don't have, and even if you give them the money and there's no strawberries to buy, there are no peaches, there are no fresh vegetables, I guess they'll have to eat whatever they can scratch out of the dirt. That's the way a lot of people in the world are doing right now. We have it so luxurious here in the United States. Even the poorest of the poor here live like kings compared to some of the poor people we've visited in different parts of the world. And I guess I feel a little guilty about it sometimes, but not guilty enough to do much.
Yeah,
I guess that's just, and I think a lot more people are like me than that will admit it. Most people don't. I hate to admit it.
yeah, it's hard knowing what to do and how can I be of use, small little, me in amongst the big heavy systems. One section of the book also that I highlighted, page 99, says half the problem is that progressives, their hands full with battling systemic, economic, and racial exclusions, not to mention multiple wars, tend to assume that the big green groups have the climate issue covered. The other half is that many of the biggest big green groups have avoided, with phobic precision, any serious debate on the blindingly obvious roots of the climate crisis: globalization, deregulation, and contemporary capitalism's request for perpetual growth. The result is that those taking on the failures of capitalism and those fighting for climate action remain two solitudes, with the small but valiant climate justice movement drawing connections between racism, inequality, and environmental vulnerability, stringing up a few swaying bridges between them. And this is the part that kind of, again, going back to the part that I didn't really think about, or the part that Naomi, I think, brought more to my attention, was this sectionality between it, that we don't have to fight racism and economic disparity and global warming as separate fronts or separate battles, but it's all the same battle. We can all share the same resources, and instead of breaking us up, I think it's factioning us in ways that we lose our power, because it's like, well, that person over there, that group is fighting racism, this group is fighting wage gaps, this group is fighting sexism, and then this group is fighting global warming. And if it's all like, okay, well, it's one thing we're fighting. And another part of the book that was interesting was she was talking about what are green jobs, and she says, yeah, most people, myself included, think green jobs are like building solar panels and installing solar arrays. And she's like, no, like green jobs are ones that have, small carbon footprints, like, au pairs and nannies and teachers and daycare providers, and through that and giving, higher pay and degrees for that type of stuff, which are typically women. You can fight sexism, social economic status, and climate change through that one endeavor. And I think that there were several of those kind of things to the book that I think, to me, was encouraging, because it's like you can, on one docket, you can be fighting or addressing multiple global issues.
Yeah, all of that is so true. Whatever she wrote there, I believe she's on to it and knows it, because we got our divisions. And, right now in the US, sometimes everybody's talking about electric cars. They don't realize that almost all the electricity that is being produced actually is currently still produced from fossil fuels, gas, oil, and that kind of stuff. It's not produced by electric or wind. Now they're trying to do more and more of that, but there's a very small percentage of the energy created in the electric car industry actually comes from something other than petroleum-based products. Carbon-based products, I guess is the way they put it nowadays. So when more and more solar and wind has got to be developed, but that's costly because even to make a solar panel takes a certain amount of carbon energy to make the panels. There's no way we can get rid of using carbon energy.
Right, well, and I think that what she's saying is, it's a lifestyle change. It's not just, oh, we have to use a different energy, but we can use the same amount, just a different thing. She's like, no, we need to just, stop doing the things, stop doing as much as we are doing. And she's like, you don't have to completely stop, but it's like, no, don't, you don't have to drive everywhere. And she's talking more on a larger level, right? Like, public transportation. We're just going out less. I remember, growing up, we went to the store once a week. That was that was it. We went to town and to get groceries once a week, and it was, if we ran out of something, you had to do with what you had until the next time you went to the store. And once in a while, we had to make emergency trips, but I don't know. Thinking back on it now, when I was a kid, it was annoying, but now it's like, oh, that's probably more economic, and Dad probably did it because it saved money on gas, but it does save on using energy and using resources.
Well, it's an interesting study, no doubt about that. And it's good that we're fortunate to have the resources to even do the study and to think about it. And
Yeah.
most people of the world are not in a position to even consider the fact that they live in a place where there's desert and it's going to be more desert. And at the very same time, we got floods in the United States and part of the Kentucky and St. Louis are flooding, and places in Texas even, and at the same time, drought 50 miles away that is devastating drought. China's got a lot of drought, and all the rivers and stuff in Europe, the Danube River practically dried up. They can't ship goods and services over the river anymore like they were doing. So it's interrupted the supplies. And when you interrupt the supply, that interrupts the cost of the products that are available, and the ones that get hurt the most, whether they're black, red, white, or what, they're just poor. And that occurs everywhere. And when the governments make rules and make sanctions on somebody, the people that get hurt first are the ones on the bottom of the totem pole. They are the ones that get hurt, the poor people. Rich people in the leadership area never really suffer very much when the war comes. A few of them lose a son or a daughter, or maybe even their own life, but very few compared to the poor people.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, and I wonder, I didn't know too much about the Great Depression, other than my grandparents went through it, and but it felt like, or at least my perception is, a lot of people were affected by it, versus the recessions now. It feels like there's a recession, but people, it wasn't enough to change people's way of living. Like, yeah, they had to pay more for it, but it didn't feel like, and maybe this is just because I'm privileged, but it didn't feel like I really changed. It wasn't like I was eating onion sandwiches, right? That and stories like that that I've heard, or saving things, beyond their use. I feel like we have this ability now that even when prices go up, we don't change how we live through it. We just tweet about it.
But here in the USA, we don't have to, because our system, our capitalistic system, and I'm for it, a part of it. In other words, what we do is we say, well, look, we got a social system. The poor people, that they need a place to live, we'll give them some money and they can rent a place to live. And so you give them enough money, then pretty soon there's enough people with money to rent places, and there's not enough places to rent, so, well, we'll have to raise the rent. Or, well, now we give them money to buy groceries. Well, that's great, as long as there's groceries in the store to buy. But what happens when the supply is less than the supply of money? That creates inflation direct. Supply and demand is, and we got a big supply of money in the United States, and everybody demands more. Where there's high wages, we all like those. But we got them in order to buy our TVs, our cars, and the goods and services and the pleasures that we want. And that takes energy. And that's carbon energy. And yet much of it we get currently. The United States is fortunately one of the richest countries, 6-7% of the population, using 25 to 30% of the world's goods and services up till just a few years ago. That's probably still close to that, because we're able to get the poor people of the world to give us their money, to give us their goods at prices.
Yeah, or the opposite. The book talked about Puerto Rico, where they have the ability to use these resources on their land, right? It's a very windy country. They have, it's close to the equator, that's solar, but instead we convinced them for them to pay us for fossil fuels and for gas and for and coal. So it's like we've convinced them to pay us instead of them being actually self-sufficient, right? And then, of course, these what was it? I can't remember if it was an earthquake or the hurricane, Maria, that went through, right? And then it took out all the stuff that we supplied them with, where if they actually used the land and the energy resources that they have, would have been much better shape. And that's not a blame on Puerto Rico. That's 100% a blame on the continental United States. Of
the profit motive, again, of whether you want to blame the large corporations, but profits are, that's what we buy our stocks and bonds for, is to make a profit. We want them to make money, so they'll pay us the interest, so I can go out and spend it. Yeah, I was in business for a long time, selling insurance and telling people to put it away so you can spend it later. But we did it for ourselves, so there's lots of consideration. You can find those micro cultures where it works. You go into the old, maybe there's probably some islands where there's native population still living mostly in the on the land and from the land. Very simple, but dress in loincloths. Of course, it's warm where they're at. Might be warmer eventually. It's an interesting study. I think we need to keep studying it.
Yeah. Yeah, another interesting chapter was called Capitalism Killed Our Climate Momentum, Not Human Nature. And it references a New York Times Magazine article by Nathaniel Rich. And I'm on page 243. Basically saying, it was human nature that is causing climate change. And since then, and initially when it came out, there was a lot of backlash saying that, no, it's not people, it's capitalism that allows this stuff to happen. And we have a framework of capitalism and that's your lens you look through to make your decisions rather than, actually using human nature. Human nature being, at least to me, humanity, and looking at each other as humans. I don't think that there would have been a way we would have been in this mess, and that we changed our lens from humanity to a lens of commodity. It was an interesting take, and so then, it does go into, bringing in, religion, and, it does bring in the idea of, is scripture a story for personal morality, or is it a political morality and, morality of government? And I think a lot of the more right wing, again, libertarian viewpoint thinks, scripture it's a personal thing, but it doesn't apply to politics, it doesn't apply to government, and therefore, capitalism and the negative effects of capitalism is okay, because, even though scripture does say, to me, in my opinion, a lot of stuff that is kind of talks to the critique of capitalism, they don't think it applies. So it's an interesting. I think that's the key point when we talk about faith and religion, is it's the conversation about what is religion as far as morality, and where's that line of how much does more of religion dictate our actions.
Well, I think in the US, I think we're more individualistic and we take an individualistic view of it. But actually, in Jesus's culture, it was a corporate as well as an individual thing. And I think Americans have kind of forgotten that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we just, well, I guess it's been a couple weeks ago. In the youth Sunday school, we did the story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and it's this, it's an interesting story of, in growing up, you hear of the miracle that Jesus can turn, 5 loaves and 2 fish into 12 baskets of bread and a multitude of fish, and that's the miracle. And we forget that it's, the fact that he initially had to take someone's meal that they rightfully earned, and based on your interpretation, whether they took it from him or the boy offered it, right? In a capitalist idea, you don't have to offer it. It's my right that I brought my own lunch. You should have brought your own. So that this idea that, I think that there's a miracle that this boy had of giving up what was his for the group. Is
Too bad that we don't have 7.5 billion Jesuses instead of just one Jesus who gave an example. But they killed him, of course, because he was by himself. He was minority. And I guess if you had a million Jesus here in the USA, the other 290 some million would probably kill him because they don't like what he's saying. They said, well, you got to give to each other. You got to share. You've got two coats, you give one to the one without. You've got pairs of shoes, you give one pair to somebody that didn't have any.
Yeah.
You get rid of that person in a hurry. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's hard. I think now people, it's more like we have three coats, and instead we take the two from the person who has two and give them away. Like it's not us who has to deal with it. It's just passing it around amongst the poor people. You take one poor coat and give it to another one and say we did good. Meanwhile, we still have a closet full of our own.
Yeah, that's for sure. I got shirts I never wore. I don't know why I got them.
I'll let you clean them out.
Yeah, Marcia let me get rid of them, but I probably should. Oh dear. Lord, save us from.
Kylie actually just she every month she kind of does some sort of discipline, whether it's meditate every day or give something up or work out once a day or something. So September she's going to do no spend September, where the only thing she's going to buy are food and the necessities. So it's
Say that again, Matthew. Kylie's gonna do what?
she's calling it no spend September.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so giving up Amazon and buying things we think we need but actually don't. It'll be interesting.
And are you going to do this with her?
I'm gonna try. Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
I read the other day, and I've been trying to follow it more and more, where the guy just said, let go and let God. In other words, quit trying to, some things you just can't do it. Just forget, just let it go and let God take care of it.
Yeah, was that the Richard Rohr
I think it was.
the meditation? Yeah. Yeah.
The one he had today was unusually good, I thought.
I'll have to read it. There's days where I'm on it, and then there's I haven't read it in like a week or so that I just.
I try to read it every day because it's on my phone, on my computer.
Yeah.
Right. Scan through it because he generally has some good stuff. And today I thought was especially good. It's about the wedding feast. He does these little homilies. And the guy over here at Benjamin, our grandson, goes to the Catholic Church and must want to invite, and we've been there in a little 10, 15-minute homily that priest does sometimes is really good. It's really, most preachers, they got to have their 40-minute sermon, which is 10 minutes of really good stuff and 30 minutes of waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the books are good. And this book what's the next one, Marcia?
Well, are we going to do Fern Gully?
Yeah, I believe. So
Are you going to show that as a cinema in the sanctuary?
Yeah, that's the plan. I need to double check with with Matt and Chad, but that's the plan, and I'm hoping that we can sort out the sound stuff so that we can, you know, watch it up on the big screen rather than a small TV. But yeah, that's the plan. We'll do a Sunday evening thing and then watch it on and then either discuss it that night or discuss it later in the week. We'll still figure that out and let everyone know.
I watched it with the grandchildren many years ago, and I kind of
Yeah,
remember what it is, but I would love to see it again to refresh my memory.
yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely watch it. We'll have a viewing somehow here at the church, so.
Okay, that'll be,
Um, Yeah, that's next month. And then if you want to get the book for October, but the next month. It's Four Lost Cities, A Secret History of the Urban Age by Annalee Newitz.
now is that, and that is on the schedule you gave us, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, as long as it's on there, I'll get it from the library.
Okay, yep, good. All right, I will end this with a benediction from the book, page 136. What I told her is what I tell you. What you are doing is amazing, and what you do next will be amazing too, because you are not alone. You are part of a movement, and that movement is organized at the United Nations, running for office and getting their schools to divest and trying to block Arctic drilling in Congress and in courts and on open water all at the same time. And yes, we need to grow faster and do more, but the weight of the world is not on anyone's shoulders. Not yours, not Zoe's, not mine. It rests in the strength of the project of transformation that millions are already a part of.
Thank you, Matthew. That was good.
Yep, thank you, Chuck and Marcia.
Okay. See you next time, or see you Sunday.
Have a good evening.
You too.